Why'd you move your store to the mall?
Because apparently I wanted to be alone.
Snoogans.
Nah, rent's just cheaper here. On account of the mall is slowly dying. The old girl's on her last legs, boys. So much so that you gotta watch out for all the mall rats.
I didn't see any kids here.
No, I mean the actual rats we got running around this abandoned shithole of a mall. Hit the deck, boys.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Dead Malls, your one home for the coziest and most in-depth abandoned mall tours on the web. In my little absence, I was cooking up something good. A mall that I've been so eager to share with you all. A golden sunset-soaked paradise. Once one of the most beautiful malls in the world, nowadays abandoned, infested with cats, and slowly rotting back into the earth. This is the Esplanade Mall in Kenner, Louisiana. An abandoned mall that was killed by a hurricane. The first mall that I've ever been caught by the police in, and easily a top 5 abandoned mall, if not one of the most beautiful abandoned malls that I've ever been to. And that's coming shortly after seeing Seminole flooded with hot pink neon. So before I spoil any more of this amazing mall, and before we dive into its interesting story, let's head to the Esplanade. Seeing this place was actually part of a separate southern expedition that Amy from Amy Exploring and I embarked on just days after I got back from our first Florida trip. The episodes that came prior to this one. It was a lot of traveling for me specifically. Our adventure saw us trekking across several states in the span of 2 days. While passing through New Orleans, we stopped by, and after finding a door into the mall at nighttime, we came back the next day. A stunning sunset enveloping the city, and the Esplanade was just sitting there, waiting to be explored. Of the same breed. Look at, they're all going underneath the sinkhole.
I've seen a few tabbies.
I wonder if they live in the sinkhole. Or in the... They're all jumping down there. I'm gonna get a video of that when we come back out. That's crazy. So there you just got a little bit of foreshadowing as to how this episode ends, as I was never able to really get a video of the sinkhole leaving, and you're going to find out why. But that's a big reason why I call this mall cat infested, is because when we were walking up, there was just dozens and dozens of cats running around and jumping down into this sinkhole, and the owners told us, when we were ultimately caught, spoilers for the end, that they're just trying to contain all the cats and keep them out of the mall because, I mean, when you think about it, it is really sad that so many cats get stuck in the mall because people have been leaving the doors open. And just thinking about that, it's kind of heartbreaking, really. It's heartbreaking how all of this sits abandoned and rotting like this. All of this beautiful space. So, how did Esplanade Mall get like this? Well, let's dive in and tell the story, first making a stop at the mall's rifled management office. Yeah, that's one of the first things you notice inside of this mall is, aside from all of the phalluses scribbled onto the walls, and the fact that none of the glass has been broken, that's thanks to all these security cameras, which is more foreshadowing. But it just blew my mind how it seems like a lot of people have been getting in here and spraying all the fire extinguisher dust everywhere and making the atmosphere really chalky, and it was kind of gross, but also kind of cool and fascinating in a way. I don't know, it was like a weird mix of decay and still being perfectly intact. It was very, very interesting. I just hope that they're able to keep it nice like this, and the mall doesn't get too trashed like so many other bandos that we've seen. But I guess only time will tell on that front. The grand concourses of the Esplanade were first envisioned by mall developers Cadillac Fairview in 1983, laying the groundwork for what would become a landmark retail destination in Kenner. By the mid-80s, Kenner, once a sleepy, swampy, ringed out parcel of New Orleans, was rapidly transforming into a bustling suburb. With Interstate 10 feeding the growing city, new retail was inevitable, and the Esplanade Mall was soon poised to become one of the region's brightest retail icons. Constructed across 1984 and into 1985, the mall officially opened on Wednesday, October 9th, 1985, looking far different than the softened, stripped-down version that exists today. As historic photos of the mall show, the Esplanade Mall debuted with a bold, exuberant design, vocabulary rarely seen in American malls then or since. From the start, the Esplanade was crafted to echo the charm and the theatricality of New Orleans itself. The interior blended French Quarter-influenced details with vivid postmodern color, bistros and cafes tucked beneath neon-lit pagodas, a glowing food court known as La Terrace, and a landscape of fountains, sparkling bulbs, lush planters, and tree-filled atriums that brought the space alive. Rising high above the crowds, though, were its most striking elements, an endless procession of half-circle mosaics, each splashed with ornate patterns and saturated colors that washed the skylit halls in personality. The grand opening drew crowds far beyond expectations. Residents of Kenner and the greater New Orleans area packed the concourses, instantly cementing the Esplanade's reputation not just as a mall, but as an experience. With over 85 stores on day one, and 3 major anchors, D.H. Holmes, Leon Gottschalk's, and Mervyn's, the Esplanade quickly stood amongst the great malls of the South. For many, it became one of the most beautiful enclosed shopping centers in the United States. A place where design, leisure, and community all converged under one unforgettable roof.
Look at this. Those eclairs. Wow. Check you out.
I mean, seriously, I could have stayed here the entire evening, just watching the sunbeams cast these long, dramatic shadows through the mall's skylights and architectural details. It was so fascinating. And it's really sad how the mall was renovated into bland oblivion over the years, with those skylights being the last really redeeming feature. But I will say, the way that the golden light hits this place really makes this mall feel almost sacred. Like, for a moment, the decay didn't matter. All those ceiling tiles that you're going to see coming up that have fallen out, all the fire extinguisher dust, all the graffiti, the emptiness, it didn't matter. It was just me, the quiet, and this gorgeous fading moment.
There's an old Chick-fil-A. Oh, wow. Look at that. Someone left their wig on the floor. Multiple wigs. Even left some of the tables and chairs in the back. Look at that.
I know, it's hard, impossible even to believe that that's the same shot, just 40 years apart. They really did a number on this place in the renovation, and we'll get to that in the history in time, but let's just keep enjoying the beauty of the Esplanade center court and that amazing elevator, which I think is another one of the mall's few original aesthetics, still featuring an iconic Esplanade mosaic hung above its doors. Welcome to the La Terrace Food Court, once a shiny neon beacon to this city, filled with lush trees and planters, fountains, tables and chairs, bistros, eateries, and restaurants of all shapes and sizes. Now, well, I mean, you can see it here, the drop ceiling tiles are rotting out, spilling down onto the old planters, which are still full of plants, just completely drowned under standing water.
Oh my god, look at this. The water bucket's filled up. Even the planters have been filled up with water.
I'd love to see what this place looks like during storms. I bet it's just a monsoon in here, underneath of all these weak points. It's insanely bizarre, but hey, we've all seen it 100 times now at this point. The only question is, how bad will the Esplanade get? You see how the dining platform here is just kind of like awkwardly cut off? Well, back in the day, it would have gone out way further, as seen in that older historic before and after I did just a little bit ago. But in the renovation, it seems like they sort of just chopped it off and made the dining platform a lot shorter, but that doesn't compare to the atrocities done to this food court. I mean, hey, it's okay with all the skylights and stuff, but it used to be so much better.
Dumpster writing. The voice of the people. Up with bubbles. Down with air. Ah!
Now, as we get back into the mall concourses themselves and see a lot of these closed stores, you're going to notice, keep your eyes peeled for stores like you're seeing on the left, where right above the closed gate, it's just the mall's name, the Esplanade, and that was one of their ways of covering up how empty the mall was towards the end. Was they would just put the mall's name up and call it good. Now, I guess that was a great way of hiding just how dire the straits really were, even though I'm pretty sure everyone saw the mall's closure coming. Now let's get back to the history. In the years that followed its opening, the mall saw a wave of name changes and expansions, both inside and out. In 1986, a massive 3-story Macy's was added as the Esplanade's 4th official anchor, forming a brand new northern wing, which we're about to go into now. A shout out to the real OGs who remember when the mall simply ended where the Macy's corridor begins now. After the expansion, the Esplanade totaled roughly 1.2 million square feet, with hundreds of stores forming the core makeup of its retail identity. Dillard's also entered the picture, phasing in after the D.H. Holmes brand was retired following a parent company merger in 1989. Through the late 1980s, the Esplanade settled comfortably into its new role as Kenner's civic living room. Weekends brought families wandering beneath its neon arches, shoppers drifting from bistro to boutique along the gentle angles of the upper concourse, and teenagers spilling out from General Cinema's new Esplanade Mall 9 Theater, which opened in the mall's parking lot on March 3, 1989. By the early 90s, Esplanade entered a period of further changes. The Dillard's parent company conglomerate just couldn't help itself from expanding and eating up all of the smaller department stores it saw around it. In 1992, Dillard's acquired the struggling Leon Gottschalk's name and rebranded the small anchor space into a Dillard's men's store. However, aside from losing and diluting its core brand identity, the Esplanade also struggled to retain retailers in general. By the 1990s, retail fatigue had begun setting in across all Metro New Orleans malls. Competition from large regional malls like Belle Promenade, Lake Forest Plaza, and Clearview was intensifying, while ever-expanding centers such as Lakeside exerted growing pressure. In the end, as Sal notes in his Esplanade video, it was hubris within these management companies that ultimately doomed these malls. They believed their properties could thrive indefinitely in a society that was rapidly changing. The magic of the 80s and 90s shopping boom evaporated, and soon dead malls were scattered all across the metro area. As he states, malls with lax management and no plans for the future were always destined to become dead malls. A statement that couldn't be more true. As people quickly turned to the easy alternatives of big box and online shopping, black holes quickly spread across directories, as services once only found in these malls became easier and more convenient to find outside of them. Esplanade, though still relatively healthy at the time, was too resting on that same cloud of hubris, watching other malls fall around it, unaware that it too would meet a grim fate.
What is that? Are those boobs? Guys, there's literally shit all over the carpet up here. What the hell? Guys, there's Target right down there. There's people literally right down there.
The first true signs of trouble, aside from lacking numbers in the parking lot, was the closure of the mall's iconic 9-screen cinema, which would cease operations on December 27, 2000. Sitting empty for several years, it finally reopened with new owners as the Hollywood Cinemas 9 on May 16, 2002. In December 2002, it was announced that the Mills Corp, yes, that Mills Corp, was set to acquire the 6 malls from Cadillac Fairview's mall portfolio. In January of 2003, after a $621 million deal, the Esplanade was in the hands of their new psychedelic overlords. Mills immediately had ideas for how to expand and improve the mall, putting forth their own ideas for a 375,000 square foot expansion and the likes of new Mills-type mall stores, Bass Pro Shops, a new cinema, new specialty retail, a fancy term for outdoor retail, and a new Target store, with only a few of these plans actually making it through. One oddly persistent mystery, however, is when the mall actually lost its fantastical 1980s look. No news archive, redevelopment plan, or retail historian seems to record the date. What is clear is that after Mills took over, the mall's decline only accelerated, and nearly all of those grand plans quietly collapsed. My best read on the timeline is that the sweeping redesign of the Esplanade Mall, the change that wiped away almost all of its original 80s character, was triggered by Hurricane Katrina. On August 29, 2005, Katrina struck southern Louisiana with Category 5 intensity, damaging and forcing the mall and its anchors to close. The Esplanade reopened months later in October of 2005 after a lot of work with the looks you see today. At least that's my best guess on the situation. Macy's, however, with significant roof damage, chose not to reopen their 3-story department store, meaning that the Esplanade Mall was officially down one anchor.
This is the part of the mall that was damaged a lot by the hurricane, apparently. Gosh. What's this? Like a little side hallway. What the heck? Look at all these clothes that were left behind. Nice clothes. Just left abandoned here. There's little clears over there.
It makes sense that this area is often cited as the worst part of the mall when it comes to decay and hurricane damage. And no, I'm not talking about Katrina. The Esplanade actually recovered from that. This damage came from a different storm, which we'll get to later in the history. For now, I'll let you all enjoy the rest of this song while I pick my way through the mold and step over what used to be plaster from the ceiling. As you look around, you can see the decay for yourself. And with this music playing, you can almost imagine the luxury crowds that once filled this grand court.
the scale. It's so hard to capture on camera, but this place feels absolutely massive. Not fall down there. This bottom entrance down here is literally just a big gate in front of it. Like a big metal wall was built.
In the mid-2000s, the Esplanade Mall entered a period of dramatic transformations, one shaped by corporate shakeups, natural disaster recovery, and the changing retail landscape of the New Orleans metro. The first major shift came in 2006 when Mervyn's, in bankruptcy, closed its doors, leaving behind a massive two-story anchor space. That would sit empty for years. Behind the scenes, trouble was brewing for the mall's parent company. In 2007, the Mills Corporation revealed a massive $350 million accounting error, a blow that pushed the company into financial crisis. That same year, in April 2007, Simon Property Group stepped in and acquired the Mills. Although the Esplanade and several other Mills centers kept their Mills branding for a while, the old Mills management structure was quietly phased out, as Simon brought in its own strategies for how to revive the mall for the next era. You can see here where that got them. While management was changing on the mall's north end, the empty Macy's building faced a different challenge. Their store had been sitting dark, moldy, and deteriorating since the storm 3 years earlier. Under new corporate management, Macy's made the surprising decision to reinvest in the location. Crews spent months repairing the roof and performing extensive mold remediation, and finally, in October of 2008, Macy's reopened, though not at its former size. Instead of all 3 levels, only levels 1 and 2 returned to operation, marking a scaled-down but hopeful comeback. By 2010, a spark of the Mills Corporation's original vision for the mall finally became reality. After 4 long years of vacancy, the abandoned Mervyn's building was demolished, making way for a brand new target. Construction moved quick, and on June 24, 2011, the new one-story Target opened its doors, giving the Esplanade a much-needed anchor and a fresh burst of energy. Around this time, the regional retail landscape was really starting to split. Lakeside Mall continued to thrive, while many other malls across the metro slid into decline, becoming dead malls or facing demolition. At the Esplanade, the next hit came from Dillard's. In 2011, the mall lost its Dillard's men's store, formerly Leon Gottschalk's, leaving another gap in its lineup. Business continued to diminish, and just a year later in 2012, Dillard's officially downgraded its remaining store to a clearance center, consolidating it into a single level, with the second floor completely drywalled off from the rest of the mall. But the failing Esplanade still had one last trick up its sleeve. On Friday, December 13th, 2013, the Regal Cinema's Grand Esplanade 14 opened right outside the mall, an all-new, modern 14-screen theater complex. Its arrival instantly rendered the old 9-screen theater obsolete. That older cinema sat abandoned only a few hundred feet away, a quiet reminder of the mall's ever-shifting past. But the Esplanade Mall itself went in the mid-2010s in uncertainty, as even at the time, major name brands were pulling out all over the mall and being replaced with what you still see today. The hashtag store, t-shirt heaven, accessories matter. I mean, seriously, when the mall becomes a discount haven, and only that, filled with these cheap short-term leased knockoff stores or mom-and-pop businesses, then you know that the end is near.
I have to watch out because we have to be sneaky, everyone. You have to be very sneaky. Try and slip past.
This is where I had to be really careful, because a constant flurry of Target shoppers came past the old mall entrance, each taking an eager glance to see the Esplanade's rotting insides, and hopefully not me there too. I was hiding behind a pillar, but I see in recent photos that this entrance has been covered up with yellow paper. That's good news for all my fellow explorers. However, what happens next may make you want to change your mind. Between the gardens of trees and planters, the many colorful neon-lit stores, the bubbling fountains, and tasty smells wafting down from La Terrace, what are some of your memories from the Esplanade? Do let me know down in the comments below. One of my favorite types of comments to interact with is memories, those who remember these places in their more colorful, vibrant times. Simon clearly caught a whiff of the stinky that was Esplanade Mall, which was quickly unfolding. The brand new theater, though opening right out front of the mall's main entrance, did little if absolutely nothing to help it. Empty food court tenants were walled off, and the small Lion's Head fountain, which was built to replace the older, much larger fountain, was tiled over and turned off. The signature The Esplanade template quickly became commonplace amongst the mall's many closed-off storefronts. In September of 2016, West Coast-based Pacific Retail acquired 3 malls from Simon, totaling $281 million. However, in court records, it was found that each of the malls was only sold for $10 each. Turns out behind the scenes, the bank Simon owed all of that money to, Real Holding, was working the deals between the two entities, and several high-ranking officials in both companies discovered that it would just mutually benefit everyone if all of Simon's debts on these 3 malls were just cancelled. And so the deal went down, with the $281 million price tag hiding that Simon really just offloaded their debt into 3 extremely low payments. When officials from all 3 firms were asked about the shady matters, no comments were ever given, meaning that yes, there was a time where you could have bought the Esplanade Mall for less than a McDonald's Happy Meal nowadays.
Guys, apparently the cops are here. So my visit has been cut a little short. Hopefully we don't get in too big of trouble, but we will see. What happens?
Ah, yes. So, this is where my friend called me and told me to come on out because the police had arrived. And the caretakers, too, eventually, who were the friendliest ladies. They would end up letting us go after we just talked to them a little bit and told them that we found an open door and we were just walking around taking pictures. They told us that they had been watching us the whole time, which I don't understand because we'd been there for over an hour. And they told us that their biggest concern really was all of the stray cats getting into the mall, which we felt pretty bad about. So if you ever do go to this mall, which I don't recommend because it has working cameras everywhere, just make sure to shut the door behind you. Please. Now back to the history. In 2016, the discount retailer 365 by Image opened in the space formerly occupied by Leon Gottschalk. In September 2017, Macy's closed its Esplanade location to focus on expanding its Lakeside store, a decision that dealt a serious blow to the mall, as Lakeside siphoned away shoppers and prestige. By that year, Esplanade had become one of the few surviving indoor malls left in the metro area, once full and bustling with shopping centers. In June of 2018, a death knell as the mall was bought by Kohan Retail Investment for $9.25 million. Kohan, known for purchasing struggling malls and letting them die, of course, let Esplanade fall into neglect almost right away. Despite the mall's downward spiral, it did find an unusual moment in the spotlight in early 2019. The Esplanade was interestingly used as a filming location for the Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie, bringing back some of the most iconic characters from Kevin Smith's filmography, including Jason Lee, Jason Mewes, and Smith himself. In the movie, the mall stands in as the cheap home for Brody's secret stash, portrayed almost exactly as it was in real life, largely empty and clearly past its prime. I find it funny that management permitted the filming, likely so that Kohan could pocket a sizable paycheck, only for the mall to be depicted as what it truly had become, a dying shopping center. After that fleeting bit of attention, closures picked up pace. By 2020, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Esplanade was already barely alive, hanging on by a thread. Then in August of 2021, Hurricane Ida struck, with the damage proving to be the final nail in the coffin. The mall closed for the final time on August 27th, 2021, with the hurricane striking and the damage to the roof and several structural areas of the mall being too great an investment for Kohan. Today, the Esplanade sits mostly abandoned, with only Target, a Dillard's clearance center, and the theater still operating, while the rest of the mall remains empty and decaying. Folks, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode and explore what the future holds for the Esplanade is beyond me. So I guess all we can really do is sit and wait. Did you have any memories from this mall? Good? Bad? Let me know down below. I was so honored to have been able to visit this amazing, beautiful mall, and it's definitely not one I will be forgetting anytime soon. But what did you think of it? The next one will be back once again for the holiday season, revisiting one of my favorite dead, then abandoned, now halfway demolished malls of all time. Guess where the pigs are flying away from, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. But until then, Have yourselves a lovely evening, and peace out, you guys. See you later.